is an unexplained phenomenon that lurks in the darkness of the night.
I think that they're different from us. We might share some of their DNA, but I don't think we're that related.
We live in a world where the unknown mysterious phenomenon manifests itself.
Because there's a lot of stuff going on. And this is stuff that's being told to us by people who know about it, who are part of, the wildlife community.
Could they be explained?
The last time I'd been to the park alone, I thought I saw a very large dark shadow, at least in that.
Hello folks, my name is Chris Fringe, and tonight, join me as I discuss the unknown phenomenon that lurks in the world. From dogmen to Sasquatch to the paranormal, let's dive into the unknown. You're listening to The Venomous Fringe. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of The Venomous Fringe. Tonight's episode, I'm going to be interviewing two individuals from the Cryptid Studies Institute, Johnny and Elijah Henderson. These two researchers have been studying the dogman phenomenon and other upright wolf-like canine creatures for quite some time now. They have a YouTube channel dedicated to the research, which I will leave a link in the description down below. They have some pretty interesting documentaries, and I would like for you guys to take a look at them because they're very interesting, informative, and I think you guys would really like a little bit about it, especially one they just did with the Beast of LBL. And I really like what they're doing with it. I can't wait to sit down and talk to them. It's going to be very exciting, and I think you guys will like them as well. They've also studied some pretty interesting things from the loop gurus to the Shinaka Warkin. I apologize if I butchered that. It's a very interesting term though, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that with them tonight as well. So I can't wait, and I know you guys will like it as well. A few things before we get started though. First and foremost, I know that we've had this little echo issue on past live streams. I have a feeling there's a couple things I've brought down to it. It's either the service and connection signal through my end that's coming from my LAN towers and the signal of performing a live stream, because my live stream performances as of late have been going into a yellow bar, which signifies that the connection is moderate and not as strong as needed. So that's been a bit of an issue lately, as well as it could also come from the opposite end. I'm not blaming it on the guest, but I know we've had these issues, and I do apologize for it. I try not to have the echo. I know a lot of you guys are cool with it, but I just feel that just to get rid of the echo, just to make it more professional. So from here on out, until we fix the situation, every live stream will just be me discussing going live. I won't have a guest on. Anything that is live, though, whether we do a pre-record, I might air live, but it won't be a live duration show. And we want to advance more into that, so folks, we would like for you guys, when we upload those episodes eventually, to take a look at them. With that being said, guys, let's get going with the show. My guests right now are Johnny and Elijah Henderson. Johnny and Elijah, welcome to the Venomous Fringe. It's great to be talking to you guys.
Good to be talking to y'all.
Yes, sir. It is quite an honor. You know you've arrived in some sort of good sphere if you make it to the Venomous Fringe.
Absolutely.
I appreciate the kind words, guys. I'm very excited to be sitting and talking to you guys. You guys have so much on the dirt sheet when it comes to research-wise, and I'm very excited to have you guys here. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing really good. The day hasn't been without its challenges, but the night's shaping up pretty good.
That's fantastic. First and foremost, biggest question of all, the million-dollar question is, what brought you guys to the field of cryptozoology? Where did it all begin, interest and fascination-wise?
Well, actually, for me, I grew up always hearing about events that happened to my mama when she was a little girl, well, not really a little girl, teenager, in our hometown in East Tennessee, Dayton, Tennessee. And excuse me, my nose is a little stopped up. I apologize. But she lived on an old farm place. It had a sawmill on it, an old rough slab house. And back in the early 60s, for a few weeks, they started having like a series of events there that had a cryptid on it. They would because everything, was rural, very country. They would have to walk almost everywhere they went. But as they would come home around these old twisty dirt roads that had like trees overhanging, clay hills on each side, they began to hear something following them at night as they would walk home. They'd see dirt rolling down the hills, and they didn't know what it was, but they would hear like raspy breathing. They walk, it'd walk. They run, it'd run. They stop, it would stop. And the intensity and the frequency of this thing following them got worse and worse to where it was finally, following them all the way up to the back porch. When they run in the house, they'd try to get in the door, and they would have to slide like the refrigerator or stove in front of the door to keep it out. And eventually, they saw it looking in the window at them. They described it almost looking apish or like a big monkey, they always said, big red eyes and heavy breathing, looking in at them. And something kept stealing their hogs. And they thought it was a person. So one of my uncles or great uncles and one of my actual uncles and a cousin went out to try to catch and see if they could figure out what it was or who it was. And they watched this big ape-like thing come loping out of the woods, step over the hog pen, grab a hog, throw it over its shoulders, and just walk away back into the woods. And this went on for a few weeks, and then it moved on to a neighboring county. But I grew up hearing about this thing, and I had a fascination with it. So that's probably where my interest came, and I put it on the back burner until many years later when Elijah and I were camping, and the park rangers played at Dixon, Tennessee, Montgomery Bell. They played a video for us, The Legend of Werewolf Springs, which takes place on the backside of Montgomery Bell. And so we thought that werewolf, well, that's just crazy. We think that's a Bigfoot, so we're just going to go over and see if we can find some footprints or something to that effect. And we went over with my wife and my niece and my mother and my daughter, and we were just out there wandering around, didn't really expect to find anything, just really having something to do. And we had an encounter of sorts.
What was the encounter, to be exact?
Well, we, like I said, we went out there. We was going to try to find some prints, going to try to find any evidence of a Bigfoot, because we were sure people were just misidentifying a Bigfoot. And we show up. We start walking down the trail there in Werewolf Springs. We notice a trail going off through this taller grass and a little pine thicket. And we start following it, and there's several of those pine trees that are broken off about waist high. So we follow it into the woods, and as soon as we get in the woods about maybe 50, 75 yards, we find like this ring of feathers, big turkey feathers or big hawk or bird. I'm not sure what kind. It wasn't turkey, I don't guess, because it's a little bit smaller. But like a circle of feathers, like something had squatted down with a bird and just pulled them out, and the feathers kind of fell in a semicircle format. And we're standing there looking at these things, and a train goes off in the distance, and it blows the whistle. And when it blows the whistle, man, something let out this horrific howl. I mean, it sounded like an 800 or a 900-pound wolf just going nuts when this whistle starts blowing. It was so loud you could feel it literally vibrating through your chest. Almost like if you pull up at a red light and somebody's got rap, the old blaring, you can just feel it shaking you. And from that moment on, I was hooked.
And that was basically how I got into it as well. After that, we joined a couple of Bigfoot hunting organizations, and it's just kind of history from that point.
Elijah was very, very young at the time, 5 or 6, and it literally almost traumatized him for several years that he didn't even want to go back in the woods.
Especially not those woods.
Yeah, but he overcame his fears, and now he'll go anywhere at any time.
Yeah, I'll just practically grab a flashlight and go now.
It's funny, we started out, we wouldn't go in the woods without like a spotlight. Now, if I've got a light on a keychain, we'll just head out 10 miles in the woods and won't think anything about it.
That's pretty incredible, because I know for a lot of people at a young age, especially those who don't know what these creatures are, could be emotionally traumatized, and the sake being that you guys go out there and research without having the... Well, I'm assuming you probably do have some sort of precaution or the thought process of being watched. I mean, you're going to be going into deep, thick woods. It's not just the Bigfoots and dogmen and other creatures out there. You also got to watch out for bears and, of course, whatever you got out in your state-wise national creatures, to at least to be exact. What drew you guys to the whole werewolf phenomenon, though? Or is this in the same junction of the Bigfoot research, so to speak?
Well, for years, we just thought it was a misidentified a Bigfoot, and we really didn't think that. We're deeply religious, so the idea of a shapeshifter or a werewolf, just didn't really mesh up with my view of reality.
We've always liked werewolves, but just didn't imagine anything like that or of that nature could exist.
Yeah, but the more I got to listening to Linda Godfrey and reading her book, and I saw that so many people, reputable people, doctors and lawyers and businessmen and policemen, claim to have seen, these things, but nobody described them really as like a supernatural thing, they were more like a natural animal. They really, I started to think, well, what if this is just some sort of a natural animal that maybe even precipitated the belief in werewolves? So it gave me an avenue to start researching, and the more I've researched, I'm willing to look at other things now. Maybe there is a supernatural element to some of these things. So we're really a lot more open-minded now.
That's a good feeling. I myself have also can eager to admit that I'm being more open-minded when it comes to difference of what these creatures are. That also wants me to ask you guys this question too. Now, in your honest opinion, for both of you, what do you think a dogman is, or what do you think a werewolf is? Do you have any idea? What would you think? What would you define it as?
Now, a dog man, I don't know. I mean, anybody who's really looked into this knows that there have been dog-headed men throughout the history that have been reported on the cynocephaly. So I don't know if it's some offshoot of that. I don't know if it's some sort of an amalgamation from years past that's like a human-animal hybrid. But a lot of times these things almost seem like some sort of a natural animal, because a lot of times when people see these things, they'll see them on all four, then they'll hear a pop, 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 as these things stand up. I really don't know, but I want to know, so I'm willing to look in any avenue. Then I talk to people, or not really talk to, but been put on the trail of people who claim to actually be shapeshifters. They say they can do it through dark magic. I've not seen anybody do it, so until I do, I can't say that's actual. What I can say is you find footprints, you find hair samples, you see shapes, you hear howls. So there's definitely something there of a physical nature. But we want to know what it is. That's why we're out in the field. We're just trying to do what we can to understand it.
Now, something that truly is interesting about what you guys do with research, and it's a place that, for me, when you guys had first started talking about it in a group chat one time that we're a part of, you had mentioned it was Werewolf Springs. Can you tell us a little bit about Werewolf Springs, what it is exactly?
Sure, Elijah, I'm going to let you take this one.
Okay. Werewolf Springs is an area in Burns, Tennessee. It's over by, it's on the back side of the park, Montgomery Bell. It's in Dixon, Tennessee. And over in that general region, you already have a legend called the White Bluff Screamer, which is described, some cases it's almost paranormal in nature. In other cases, it's described as looking almost like a white Sasquatch. But this particular area, in the mid to late 1800s, they say that a circus train was traveling through the area, and at some point while it was going down the tracks, something happened to make it derail, and the boxcars busted open, and a lot of the animals that they had on board escaped. They managed to recapture everything that was on their manifest except for two things that were listed as either a wild man or a wolf man of Borneo.
And there was a male and female.
Yes, there's a male and a female on board, and they were never able to recapture those.
If the local lore is to be believed.
Yes, that's the story from the town. But following this alleged story, whether true or false, people started seeing what they described as a werewolf in the area. There was a farmhand and a landowner who was traveling through the area. They had bought a glass door, and they were transporting it on their wagon. They're going down the road, and they seen the werewolf standing on the side of the road, so they, have the horses pick up their speed and try to outrun it. But eventually it starts chasing them, so they speed up a little more, and it's not losing any speed, it's actually gaining on them. And eventually the werewolf, whatever it was, manages to grab onto the back of the wagon and starts to climb in. They realize they're not going to get away from this thing, so they decide, okay, we're going to split up in two different directions. You run this way, I'll run this way, and it will give one of us a better chance of survival. So they both jumped off the wagon and diverted paths. One of them hopped behind a log and just stayed there most of the night, but he heard the sounds of his farmhand being torn apart and slaughtered. And from that point there, even up until like the 70s, people described seeing a werewolf that can stand on two legs in the area, a bipedal canid.
And even before we started researching, I'd done construction down in Dixon, Tennessee, and people would always tell me about this cemetery that you could go to, and sometimes they would say that when the moon was out and it was bright enough to see, you could see a werewolf walk across this cemetery. Of course, I didn't put much stock into it until Montgomery Bell showed us the video about the legend of Werewolf Springs, and then we started thinking it was a misidentified Bigfoot, but we're pretty sure it's actually some sort of an upright canid instead of just a Bigfoot. Of course, there are big feet in the park because a fellow researcher, a friend of mine, and I saw some in the front side of the park one night, and a city councilman from Dixon told us when I interviewed him that he actually saw one back in the 70s or 80s when he was hunting out there. Said it was about 6 feet tall, very stocky, long red hair all over it. So you've got two things going on there, but they never seem to be in the area at the same time.
And we found footprints, too,
of both things.
That's pretty incredible. I recall when I did my Tennessee episode, I had mentioned Werewolf Springs, but I don't really know too much about it. So to hear people out there who are researching this area and know a lot about it, it's incredible and fascinating to me. And I've heard of Montgomery State Bell. Have you in the area, for example, in a case where have you ran into any officials who've been skeptical of what you guys have been doing in the area, or park rangers have been like, what have you guys been doing? Are you guys up to something? In terms like, do you think that these guys know what's out there and they just can't explain it due to their profession or what is being covered, to be exact?
Well, now I've talked to a ranger out there, and asked them a long time ago if anybody had ever seen anything there. This was back when I was still just Bigfoot hunting. And there's like, somebody claimed to see a bear up on the hill. They saw something big and hairy. They saw a bear. And he didn't sound too sure about it. So I don't know what somebody saw, if it was really a bear or not, but there's not really bear in this area. It's possible one wanders through, but it's not a normal animal for Middle Tennessee.
And shoot, I called up recently and asked them if they'd had anything, but nothing of a swatchy sort or dogmanish nature that they knew of.
I find in many cases when you look at the phenomenon of werewolves or even dogmen or whatever, if you want to consider them both, the thing is when it comes to a lot of the research, there comes a lot of people who are within the fields of areas such as that of law officials or park rangers that do give away information there and there when they could, but at the same time, it's very classy, very, very hard to really put out because of the government surrounding behind that. But one other thing I wanted to make mention of was, have you heard of reports of these creatures killing or attacking people, so to speak?
Yes, everybody knows the stories down in Land Between the Lakes. The one in Montgomery Bell, you know, if the story is true, is said to have killed a couple of people.
A fair bit of people, actually. Allegedly, according to the story, there's a cave over there that over around Creech Hollow Lake in the park that is supposedly since kind of filled up, been flooded.
Yeah, it's underwater now.
But they say they found human bones in that cave.
And cow bones and such like that, like something killed them and drug them there.
Right.
Are you familiar with the story of the hunter who was in one of the cabins one night and was shooting this thing with all his ammunition up until sunrise? Are you familiar with that story?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah, allegedly he was hired by the wealthy guy who had the glass door that he was transporting when his farmhand got killed. Hired this gentleman to come and try to solve their werewolf problem, and he stalked it around for a few days, and it followed. Then on the night of the full moon, and I think the full moon may be a coincidence, just because it was bright enough he could see what was going on out there.
Yeah.
He saw it outside the cabin, and he began to shoot at it. It come in, and he repeatedly fired at it, and it just didn't seem to faze this creature. And he supposedly saved 2 bullets, and he climbed in the rafters. This thing was trying to get him. He was going to shoot one more time and try to kill it and save the last bullet for himself. But according to the story we heard, he was about to just play his final cards there with those 2 bullets when the sun began to come up, and this wolfish creature just turned and ran away into the woods and just seemed to evaporate into the morning fog. Not really evaporate, but just sort of disappear into the tree line.
That's truly a very interesting account of these creatures. It makes you wonder, as you mentioned prior, about the supernatural side to them that they possess, which makes me wonder, do you consider a lot of the werewolf or dogman creatures to be a flesh and blood animal, or a flesh and blood animal with an interdimensional type ability or supernatural side to it?
Well, I've got friends that would swear that they're interdimensional. I've not encountered anything of that nature to make me think that, and I've not encountered anything that made me think that they would be space aliens. But again, some people believe that, and it may be true. I don't know. But so far, all I've seen would lead me to believe that they are a flesh and blood creature. While I'm not an evolutionist by any standard, I'm a creationist. A lot of people will tell you, that man gradually ascended from apes, and the apes got to where they would be crawling around on all fours and would try to see over tall grass and develop the ability to stand up. And that's where primates started walking. Now, if people accept that out of apes or primates, then why is it hard to believe that there might be a canine that could do the same thing? If people believe in evolutionists, why would they not believe, or evolution, why would they not believe that maybe there's a species of dog-like creature that is starting to develop in a different way?
And for me personally, everything that I've looked into, I always fall back, like my dad mentioned, to the cynocephali. They go back to 500 BC. Herodotus has wrote about them. Marco Polo, Alexander the Great, the Greek physician Ctesias. There's even been werewolf-like things mentioned in the Epic of Gilgamesh. And I always kind of fall back on amalgamation as kind of an explanation for them. Well, something I've always kind of been interested in since I read about it. I don't know if you ever heard of a historical writer known as Ellen White, but Ellen White, she is regarded by many to be a prophet. She's had multiple prophecies that have come true. The San Francisco earthquake, and it was always described that when she'd go into vision, she'd hold up a big, heavy family Bible and just stand there like that for 30 minutes to an hour.
It was an 18-pound Bible, I think.
I don't think she'd breathe. And she'd just kind of look.
Grown men couldn't move her while she's in vision.
She'd look just straight up toward the heavens, and she was hit in the nose with a rock at a very young age, so she wasn't able to really continue her schooling at the time. This was a woman from the 1800s, by the way.
She had a third-grade education, but get on with what she wrote about.
Anyway, her writings are just so intelligent if you read them, and she wrote about the antediluvian race before the flood, and she said that at that point in history, there were amalgamations between man and animal. They were, I guess, just merging the genes back then. Somehow they'd figured out how to do that, and just creating just diverse species. And she described that
since the time of the flood, it's still going on.
Since the time of the flood, she said that it's managed to start back up and continue going on. But the species that God made, they were brought onto the ark and rescued. But the confused species that God did not make, they died in the flood. But since the flood, the amalgamations, they figured out how to make them and just kept going, so to speak. Rough summary.
And we're not saying that that's exactly what's going on. We just think it's a very interesting concept.
I think it's a possibility. It's just always kind of stood out to me.
And then, if you want to look at a biblical thing, you've got people who believe that God turned Nebuchadnezzar into a wolf man. I think he probably made him go crazy for a while, but there's people who genuinely believe that God turned Nebuchadnezzar into a wolf man for 7 years.
I really enjoy your guys' views and beliefs on this type of stuff because there's a lot of people, research-wise, that don't go into a lot of detail, especially in the history books of what these creatures are dating back to the early times. And in the source of religion, do you believe that these creatures will be the creatures that emerge from the abyss of the woodline to wipe out humanity when the end of times come? It's a very complex question, but I ask it for that specific purpose.
The honest answer is I've never really heard that theory, but who's to say, we don't know what kind of things are there, If you go from a biblical belief, why would Satan not want to keep people from hiding? If you put a bunch of evil things in the woods that people would be terrified of, they're less likely to be able to hide and be safe in the woods.
That's very true as well. Taylor, Mississippi, home to a lot of unknown phenomenon, some loop guru activity, some werewolf activity. Can you guys tell us a little bit about some of the research that you've put out into Taylor, Mississippi, in that area in particular?
Well, Taylor has really just come on our field of vision recently, and we went down. We wanted to kind of do a pre-scouting outing, so to speak, and we went down not this weekend. We went to a Comic-Con this weekend, but the weekend before we went to Taylor, Mississippi, and we were only there for about 8 or 10 hours, or closer to 12 hours, I'd say, and we drove through the town and the county at night to see if we could see or hear anything, but there was so much traffic on Old Taylor Road where a lot of events supposedly happened that we really couldn't even stop and listen. In fact, we saw somebody's dog get run over and killed out there, and I felt terrible. But my wife saw it happen as we was going down the road. She's like, that truck just hit something big and black. And I was thinking, oh, dog man. And I made her go back, and we walked down the road till we found the body, and it was somebody's big black poodle. And it just kind of killed the whole mindset of looking for anything that night, seeing this poor creature just dead on the side of the road, knowing it was somebody's beloved family pet. So we went on back to the hotel room because with so much traffic you couldn't do anything. We didn't really know where to go look. But the next day we got up and we drove through town and we drove through the county. And let me tell you, if there is ever a place that would support a large population of dogmen or wolf-type creatures that can stay hid if they wanted to, it is Taylor, Mississippi. It is thick, laid thick with kudzu. You would never be able to see what's under all that kudzu. They're thick wooded areas and swampy areas. I mean, there's a million different places that something could hide. I could easily believe that there's something going on down there, and I intend to make it my business to go back and research. I just need to do more study of the town to find out what is the closest place we could stay, and where could you go that you wouldn't get arrested for being on somebody's private property, because you don't want to go into a town and offend somebody. You know, you want to treat them with respect. First thing you don't want to do is go, hey, are you the guys that got the dog men or the werewolves? You know, because I'm sure they get that stuff all the time. You know, you kind of got to be a gentleman about it, you know.
Absolutely. I'm like that myself when I speak to a lot of eyewitnesses as well. It's a very conflicting situation because of the resource as well as, of course, the fear of ridicule in the line of work that we all practice. When you guys went to LBL, I want to just transition real quick and go talk a little bit about LBL real quick because...
Well, before you do it, can I add something else about Taylor, Mississippi?
Oh, please, go ahead, please. My apologies.
One thing that led us to Taylor, Mississippi is, are you familiar with the story of Robert Johnson, the blues great from the 1930s who allegedly went down to the crossroads and sold his soul to the devil for the ability to play?
Yes, I am.
Down in Clarksdale, Mississippi. I mean, even Jimmy Page and what is that guy's name? Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin. They actually went down to, or made an album, Walking into Clarksdale, and it never really seemed funny to me until I found out later in life that Jimmy Page is a devout follower of Aleister Crowley. So he went to the crossroads and actually has a pot of soil from the crossroads in his home, unless he's got rid of it by now. But a lot of people follow Aleister Crowley, so they're fascinated with the crossroads. But I mention that because this is the place where Robert Johnson went and allegedly sold his soul, and shortly after, he wrote a song about hellhounds on my trail. And I didn't know it until a couple of weeks ago, but Taylor, Mississippi and Clarksdale, Mississippi are within like 50 miles of each other, very short distance, and it would have been much more rural and wooded at that time. So I have wondered if maybe he saw a dog man and confused it with some sort of a hellhound, and might have been the inspiration for his song.
I've always found that account to be pretty interesting, especially for those who study in the practice of the black magic or the dark voodoo, so to speak. And I feel, in a sense, it's a very unnerving scenario because I myself would never want to sell my soul. Obviously, I don't think you guys would either. And
absolutely not.
But I find it all to be interesting with the Taylor, Mississippi. There's a lot of unknown, unexplained phenomenon out there. And have you guys run across any locals by any chance in that location, or as of now, maybe down the road, that have kind of thrown dark warnings at you in a sense, or have given you that Hebe phenomenon of that GB look of like you're of an uncomfortable presence when you're in an environment?
Well, when we were in Taylor, it was almost impossible to find a person. At night, everybody down on Old Taylor Road had a very bright porch light, so it made me wonder, is there something out here they're trying to keep at bay with all these lights? I never saw a real human presence other than the guy that ran over the dog, and he seemed like he wasn't really a local, that he was just somebody passing through. But there was a lot of thick, misty fog. You definitely get a creepy vibe from being there. But the next day when we come through, we still didn't see any people out and about. But we started going down this old road and looking around, then that old road and looking around. And we turned down this one dirt road and followed it around for a mile or so. And we come to a gate that had a big, it was a big lock gate, and it had a big sign on, warning sign, that only the county could be out there, that it was under video surveillance at all times. And I was wondering, why is this area of town, this county, why is there so much video surveillance on this old dirt road? Why do they not want you back there? And I wondered, you know, I don't know if the siege at Lockett Farm was a real thing or if it's something made up, but I wondered if there was some sort of event had taken place back there that they were trying to keep the public out of. Now, when we went to Robert Johnson's grave, we met a couple there who had been, the year before, they wanted to spend New Year's Eve at a juke joint, and for whatever reason, they had left early, and they said it was like super cold there in Clarksdale, Mississippi. It never gets that cold. It was sleeting and it was ice, and they decided they was just going to leave before midnight. And they were driving away, and they were passing the crossroads at midnight in all this cold weather, and their car just died right at the crossroads. And there was a figure wandering around out there in the dark. They said it almost looked like it had a hoodie on or something covering its head. But for whatever reason, as they sat there, they just started hearing pounding on the outside of the car all the way around, going round and round it. Then it stopped, and then her car started and is able to go on. But that'd be about the extent of the people we met and was able to talk to. Everything was closed up tight there in Taylor.
That's a very frightening instance, of course, being off on the side of the road and dealing with pounding and the throbbing of some mysterious creature. It's almost like the making of a horror film. In a case like that, though, do you feel that these creatures possess some sort of energy that results in cameras being drained of battery, cellular devices being drained of battery, and obviously, in this case, car vehicles drained of battery?
Well, that depends on if you're talking about something of a demonic nature, like would have been there at the crossroads, possibly, or if you're talking about wolfmen, dogmen. So far, I've not encountered anything that has led me to personally think that they drain batteries. That's not to say that they don't. We've just not experienced it yet. But a lot of people have had odd experiences when they're out and looking at these things, or looking for these things, where their lights will go out, their car will die. So I honestly can't say.
It's understandable. The reason why I say it in that sense is because I've spoken to several individuals who have mentioned to me about how they've had technology when they're out and about just magically stop working, or their cars aren't turning on. And I would feel in a situation like that, that's the dealing of a demonic creature or something of that sense of a supernatural lore versus a flesh and blood lore for the sake being. But Taylor, Mississippi, going back to it, is a very interesting location. Do you guys plan to do more further subscription investigations there?
Oh, we absolutely do. We aim to go anywhere that, for whatever reason, and I can't explain it myself, I have an unhealthy obsession with Dogman. I mean, my wife is almost certain that I'm going to die by Dogman attack because I have this unhealthy lack of fear, you know, that I'll go and do things, you know, that most people won't, and I don't know why I do it.
I think it may stem from the fact that when he was younger, he used to love werewolves, watch the Wolfman, buy the monster toy models, put them together. He loved monsters. I suspect that may be where it comes from.
Well, it's possible. And also, I stayed a lot with my uncle growing up, who used to trap animals for a living. You know, he'd trap them and skin them out and sell the hides. And I would have to go out with my cousins in the middle of the night and run those traps. And they would take me way off out in the woods. And then they'd turn off the flashlights and they'd run off and leave me and holler that there was a monster there, something like that, and laugh, you know, as I was left alone there a long way from home in the woods, you know, scared and crying, and they'd laugh and make fun of me. So over the years, I just developed an ability to not have a sense of fear of anything. But these wolf men, man, they fascinate me so much, and everybody's like, oh, you do not want to have an experience with one. And I'm like, oh, yes, I do. And I really can't explain why I have that need to be close to these things. But anywhere that I hear there's one, I'm going to go and find it. I'm not interested in killing it or anything of that nature. I just feel this compulsion to see one and to know for myself that it exists. Is that weird?
Not at all, because I wanted to actually add on to what you said, because I think when people display fear, especially when you see something that's past your height and looks like a monster, your fear levels increase because your adrenaline starts pumping to the point where you yourself don't know how to react to seeing something that is totally abnormal to you. And for you, growing up in a situation where you've been left alone in the woods, that you've had to walk home alone in the woods, and you grow that as you get older and you develop it. And I think for any hunter, any individual in general who is an outdoorsman, should build a level of confidence and show no fear, because it'd be the same reaction as if you were to see a bear. You know what I'm saying?
Right. You know, and it also may be that twice in my life, my mother was a very free spirit, good woman, but a very free spirit, you know. She was very, she'd take a whim to do something and she'd just do it. She'd be like, I think we're just going to go live in a tent for a year. So twice in my life, I lived in a tent for a better part of a year out in the wilderness. So I almost feel more comfortable away from people in the woods than I actually do. You know, even if I'm at church, you know, I'm looking for an empty corner to go and hide in somewhere, because people just make me nervous. You know, things in the woods really don't. I don't know if it's that or the fact that, you know, I had a heart attack and I died a few times or a couple of times. So once you've been dead, there's not much left to be afraid of.
That is very true as well. And I really praise exactly what you, for having that ability of confidence to show no fear. I for a lot of people, it'd be like, well, it sounds tough, but really in the woods, I feel that if you are an outdoorsman, more importantly, if you're a researcher, showing fear is probably the most hardest thing to do, especially when we're out there chasing creatures that could easily rip our heads off in a matter of seconds. For Taylor, Mississippi, I wanted to transition real quick to LBL because there's something about this place that really interests me, and for you guys to do a documentary too on it. And by the way, that's a very nice documentary, Dark Hollow, what you guys did. I really like it. I think it's great. I'm glad that there's more people out there doing that type of stuff. But your impressions of the Land Between the Lakes, how was it for you guys? Like, what was it like to go into an area that was filled with so much lore, from supernatural phenomenon to vampires living in an abandoned portion of the park itself?
The honest answer for me, it was like going to Disney World.
Yeah, that's kind of about it.
I mean, during the day, you know, it's beautiful. It was really hot, you know, because it is summer. It was very hot, but it was very beautiful. We put our tent on the edge of a creek, and a nice little rocky, I guess a shoal would be the right word for it. We set up a big line of tiki torches there, and we had like a brazen fire pit. And we got there before dark. We just took pictures and wandered around the landscape. And we chose that area because in 2016, in March of the year, I believe it was, a gentleman had been camping in the very spot we chose, and he saw a dog man walk through his setup at this location because the gentleman saw that or saw a dog man in the very location, and we had chose also because one of the soybean fields that was adjacent to our campsite was supposedly where they found the body of the bow hunter that some people say was killed by a dog man. So to have both things going on in the same area was a bit of a red flag for us. So we wanted to set up there. We wanted to do one of our nightmare nuggets, as we call them, our little mini documentaries, and just talk about it. You know, thought it'd be fascinating. Didn't really expect to get any activity, but lo and behold, we did. You know, Elijah kept telling me all night, him and my wife, that they're like, I heard a howl. And I'm like, you're nuts, you didn't hear a howl. Of course, I'm not really a good judge of that as well, because I'm starting to lose some of my hearing from being in the construction industry for so long. And they kept saying that they were hearing footsteps and something walking. And I thought that maybe the stories were getting to them, and maybe they were just hearing things or projecting what they wanted to hear. Turns out not to be the case.
Well, you know, obviously it's got to be a creepy spot anyway, because it does have the lore attached to it. But such as like when we were filming our Nightmare Nuggets, I kept hearing things off walking behind me, so you know I got my back turned to the wood line.
If you watch the video, at one point he's saying, and at one point I felt very uncomfortable, and you kind of see him turn around and look at the wood line. That wasn't fake. That was him really looking. He almost got spooked. And I want to clear something up. You know, I said I have no natural fear, but if something jumps out, you know, and I'm not expecting it, that's going to freak me out for a second. That's going to scare me for a second. But
that's different.
But that's a little something different. But we kept listening and filming, and we were just about to pull up stakes and go home, because we made a mistake by setting up so close to that creek, because all these cottonmouth snakes started coming out, and as roaming around close to our camp and wandering around everywhere. I think it's because there's like a lot of little frogs and fish in this stream.
Right.
I think they were coming out to get those. But my wife, she has no problem with me hunting dogman or Bigfoot or anything like that. She'd stay with me through the thick of it no matter what's going on. But you get a snake and, well, she's like Indiana Jones. She don't like snakes. And she wasn't going to sleep there with all that many cottonmouths crawling around, because there was like 5 or 6 of them right there at our camp. And so we was going to pack it up and go on home. And as I'm packing up, we are putting things in the car, and I turn around and look across the creek in this little road, and there's something there watching me, just real bright orange eye shine. And I'm like, what in the world is that? I wonder if there's a wild hog out here. Elijah, let's go over there and look at that. We got to get our camera out of that tree anyway. So we take this copper spear we forged, because somebody told us that there's a theory that dogmen are allergic to copper.
We've heard that a couple of times.
So we forged a copper spear, and we go across the creek to get our camera. And now this thing with orange eyes is standing up about 2 feet tall. And we're watching this thing, and then I realized that's a raccoon. And it's watching us, we're watching it, it's bobbing around. And so I started trying to get the camera out of the tree, and Elijah's like, whoa, look at that. I see eyes shining back there. You know, it's a lot higher off the ground. And I was like, what? And he said, it's back there, it's blue, it's kind of an electric blue. And I'm trying to see it, and his eyes are much better than mine. So he's shining a light back between these 2 trees, and he's like, it's back between these 2 trees. And between those 2 trees, I kid you not, it's so incredibly black back there. I'm like, is that a shape? I can't make out what that is. Is that a shape, or is that dark? No sooner did the words leave my mouth, there was like a growl, grunt, and something hit or bumped into one of those trees back there so hard it shook the tree, which kind of startled us because we wasn't expecting any sort of a noise. So we started slowly backing away, and we had to back past one of the cottonmouths that was laying in the road.
It was even coiled up.
Yeah, it was even coiled up, so we had to not only not get attacked by something that was in the woods growling at us, but we had to get past this cottonmouth, get back across the creek to actually get where there was any real form of protection. So we go back over there, and we decide, because Elijah's disappointed, he don't want to go home. So I said, I'll make a deal with you, son. We'll keep our camp chairs out here, and we'll have all these torches out here. We'll sit here and we'll listen a while. And we sit there for a while. We walk around. We listen on our side of the camp. And lo and behold, you kind of keep hearing things walking, but you think after you heard being growled at, well, I'm imagining it. But we're sitting there, and I said, Elijah, do you still have that dog whistle in your pocket? And he's like, yeah. I said, take that thing out and blow it. Now, I know some people think that was trying to intimidate this thing by blowing a dog whistle, that it was a violent reaction, but there was a good reason for it, because elsewhere in Land Between the Lakes, there's a cemetery on the north end or south end of the park that we used to go to, and we would get some what we believe was squatch activity, and we would blow this whistle, and what we think was a squatch would mimic the tone of it and whistle back. And then it would keep doing it until we blew the whistle again. It liked this whistle. And if we would leave and come back a few days later, it would start whistling. It would come out after we'd done knocks and stuff like that. It would come back and start whistling, wanting us to blow the whistle. And it was like a game. We'd blow it and it'd try to match the tone. So we were just going to see what reaction we got blowing the dog whistle there. He blows it once. Nothing really happens that I can hear. Some people has heard the audio, say they heard some things going on, and maybe my untrained ear missed some stuff. But a little bit later, I said, Elijah, blow that again. And he adjusted the pitch on it and give it a good long blow. And then 40 seconds later, my goodness, all heck broke loose. And something come tearing through the woods back behind where our tent had been, like breaking limbs and snapping stuff. And I don't often, well, I'm not going to say it. Let's just say I was prepared if something came out of the wood line. I had a torch in one hand. He had a spear and other means of protection as we covered my wife and daughter so they could get in the car. And I think the only reason, whatever it was, did not come out of the woods was because we had those fiery torches. So at that point, we realized we had probably angered something, and we went ahead and got in the car and left it to its devices. I think the reason we probably got growled at to begin with is because I think this thing might have been about to eat that raccoon, and we interloped into its dinner area. It caused it a meal.
It's rather intriguing when researchers go to certain hotspots like LBL, and this is what transpires. I had received an email from an individual who lives in the LBL area, and though skepticals mentioned that he's been around the area a few times, never seen anything, for you guys to see something like that night, and as researchers, I'm sure it was pretty mind-boggling and pretty explosive to have that type of intense encounter. Why do you think, besides, as you just mentioned, the creature attracted to you because you'd interrupted its dinner, but do you feel that these creatures pick and choose who they want to have see them?
I think that's a distinct possibility. I don't know if they would be fascinated with me and Elijah because we don't really have a normal fear that people would have of them. I don't know if they would see that as a form of aggression. But I think some people, they do gravitate toward, for whatever reason. I would like to be one of those. I don't know that I am, but I would love to have them gravitate towards me. I hate saying too many times. It doesn't sound very smart, but I'm trying to choose my words here. I want to believe that these things are very smart. I think they're very cunning. And I think that they are probably dangerous creatures, in the right circumstance. And I believe they probably do pick and choose. I think that they might have even been watching us throughout the night, since Elijah and my wife was hearing footsteps well before the raccoon showed up. So it may have had some form of fascination with us and was watching to see what we'd do. I don't know how many hours before the coon showed up. And I think that because I've heard that they do make meals of raccoon,
it would almost seem like perhaps one had been in the area, because, when we were across the creek getting growled at, we never heard anything come walking up on the other side. If it did, it came up very quietly.
Yeah, that's the odd thing. We got growled at across the creek, but when he blew the dog whistle, something large come tearing up behind us on the side of the creek where we'd had our camp.
So that seems to imply that there was
either two there, or it had gone down and circled around behind us.
Which it would have had to move a little bit to do that.
But honestly, nothing short of a moose or a doggone bison would have been able to make the noise coming through that woods that we heard that night. And I still don't think they'd be breaking and snapping trees and limbs. But the first chance that work allows, we've got time, and my wife and daughter aren't with us, we aim to go back and finish the job. Plus, we've got at least 2 or 3 more parts to our LBL series we're going to work on. We want to actually look at the 2 other main kill sites, supposed kill sites, where one of these dog men has killed people.
And what's interesting, we've spent the whole night at the actual kill site, but we've never got anything quite as much there as we did
down in this holler. I wouldn't say the name of the holler, but I don't want somebody inexperienced to go down there trying to have a good time and maybe have an adventure and get themselves hurt. So that's why we just call it Dark Holler rather than tell the actual name of the hollow.
That's fair, and it's also very wise, because there's a lot of people that do that. One thing I wanted to ask you, though, about LBL, when it came to particularly being in the kill site, I wanted to ask you guys, do you believe this beast is more of a supernatural dogman-like creature, more of an extremist-type dogman that's of a dark voodoo lore? The stories go back with the LBL beast. A shaman used his powers for the use of evil, and that this is, in fact, a shapeshifter or skinwalker, so to speak, or perhaps a Wendigo, both the same in a sense. What would you think? What would you consider to be the case? Do you believe that this LBL beast is a dogman or more of a supernatural-like creature with wolf-like candid attributes?
Well, personally, I think that it is a dogman. There may be something darker there in the park, but I think it's definitely dogmen down there, because I was reading an account, and I've heard from other people who claim to have seen what they thought was a mother dog man with pups crossing a road there. So I do believe there's a viable population of these dog man creatures, but they seem to be, from what I understand, very foul-tempered. For whatever reason, these seem to be more ill-tempered than most of them other places. A lot of people that I've conversed with and talked to claim they've been run plumb out of the park by these things.
And that leads me on to my next question. You may have answered it for what you just mentioned, but I want to ask it in a sense of both your opinions. Why do you think they chase us? Why do you think they want us out of their territories? Is there a specific purpose, perhaps protection, or to them their land is sacred and you can't really touch it? It's almost, example, as if a stranger walks into your house and just puts his feet up on the table and lays on your couch and just relaxes without your permission. Why would you think they would do this?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, like if you run up on a bear in the woods, if it happens to have little cubs with it, it'll actually charge at you and try to run you off. So maybe it just feels like that whole area is its territory, its property.
Well, if I'm sitting here at the house and somebody just barges into my house, I don't know that they're not there to hurt my wife or my kids, and I'm going to take action. I kind of think it's sometimes these things have the same mindset. I think maybe also you have some that are just nasty tempered and they see a meal. One thing that gives me pause about going to LBL is we got the backwoods or backcountry permits, and when we got them, I stopped and I talked to the lady there at the office, and I asked her, do we need to leave someone some information about where we're going in case there's a problem? And she was like, nope, just go find a place that you want to camp. And, if these things have killed people in the park, over the years, how many abandoned vehicles do you suppose has been found on that land? Or maybe something happened to more people than what you think. That they never even realized was in the park. They think maybe they just camped and went home. I mean, there's the potential that there could be a lot more people that's come up missing there than you ever think of.
That's very true as well. And there's also been multiple occasions where park rangers, as well as police officials from the Kentucky area, have confronted individuals who've been in the park suspiciously and have asked them to leave, or to, more importantly, to be watch of their surroundings, or basically ride them off. I'm sure for you guys, when you were in LBL, you didn't run into any suspicious park rangers, as you mentioned. They just told you where to go, wherever you want to go to camp. But have you come across, when you were there, the bunkers by any chance?
Yes, I have, and I think I've solved the mystery of those bunkers.
Please explain.
Everybody's got a theory about what these bunkers are. In East Tennessee, I found another one that is very, very similar to it, and the park ranger was able to tell me exactly what that was. It used to be, years ago, not LBL, but the area that I was at, used to be an old coal mining community. And those bunkers like that were actually where they stored dynamite, where nobody could break in and steal it, and where if there was an accident, nobody really got hurt because of the thick concrete. They look almost exactly like these old dynamite bunkers. Now, as they were building LBL, it only makes sense that they would have used a lot of dynamite in the construction there of the river. So I believe those were old dynamite bunkers.
So very similar to the Mothman, Point Pleasant, West Virginia, with the igloos of the old World War II ammunition stockpile bunkers. It's basically the same thing.
Yes, and somewhere on our stuff, I think it's the Pocket Wilderness Bigfoot. Did we put those bunkers, that bunker in it, the old dynamite house?
I filmed from inside and showed the window, but I don't know that there's actual footage of it.
But yeah, there's. If not, we've got pictures of the one in East Tennessee. It's similar enough that I think that anybody would agree that's probably what that was. And, we'd always heard a lot more nefarious reasons for those things to be there. But I really almost believe that it was just like dynamite and other material storage from when they was constructing the park.
Out of all the theories we've heard, it seems to make the most sense.
That does make a lot of sense, especially for the size and height. I don't think a dogman would be able to fit in them.
No, I think the dogman would have a tight fit in one of them little bunkers they got there.
It's a very scary situation nonetheless. But with LBL, it's very interesting. I cannot wait to hear what you guys have more to put out there with Land Between the Lakes. What are some other locations you guys are interested in investigating dogman-wise?
Well, surely everybody would love to go to Bray Road and have a look around there and do like a Nightmare Nugget, like a little miniature documentary.
That's kind of like the coup de grace of dogman stuff.
But I keep hearing about some place that they reference as Dogman Town, where there's so much dogman activity that everybody in town knows about it, but I can't seem to find the location. If anybody knows where that's at, let me know, because I want to go there And I think there's a place in Michigan called Copper Cove where I keep hearing about a lot of activity. I'd like to make a trip there.
We obviously want to do a lot more at Werewolf Springs and LBL too.
I definitely want to go back to Taylor, Mississippi. I mean, we're willing to try to go anywhere within reason. You know, we just got to be able to get there and have a little information where we know where to set up camp and where to search for it.
There's an interesting little spot in Georgia. It's not a dogman spot, but allegedly a
Talbot County.
Talbot County, like Larry Talbot.
Yeah, just like Larry Talbot, the werewolf woman of Georgia. I wouldn't even mind going to Converse, Texas sometime.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. There's just so many spots you can go. I mean,
I was listening to some account today of somebody's story where they said that I live in Clarksville, Tennessee right now, where they claim that they saw a large dog man outside of Clarksville, Tennessee, probably 5 or 10 miles from my house on Highway 48, which makes me want to go down there and try. That's the second time I've heard an account of a dog man on that road.
That is pretty interesting. I'd love to hear more about it, depending on whether you go to research it or if there's more accounts coming from that vicinity in Tennessee. One thing I wanted to ask you guys was there's been a lot, and this is something I've been noticing a lot in my Dogman States and Activity shows. There is this constant reports of them being sighted in residential metropolitan-like areas. What are your opinions on the whole idea that these creatures are being more and more environmentalized coming into our own cityscape?
I think you just don't tell them where to go, you know, and if they are some sort of a descendant of the cynocephali, you know, maybe they have some kind of a genetic memory of being more in more of a civilized surroundings, and they still have a desire to come in and be a part of things. Of course, it may just be that they have an opportunity to take shelter easier rather than have to burrow up under a bunch of tree limbs or something like that. There's plenty of abandoned houses, viaducts, bridges, underpasses, alleyways.
Bigfoot itself, that cryptid, it's also been, you know, allegedly sighted going into people's barns and finding places out of the weather, I reckon.
And plus, there's a lot of scrap food that's easy to find in a city.
Indeed. When it comes to dogman evidence, when it comes to any cryptid evidence, and this is more of one of those questions that are in between both lines of research, why do you think it's really hard to get 100% clear evidence of something out there such as dogmen or Sasquatch?
I'm going to be honest, I think there's probably a whole lot of evidence out there that just never sees light of day. Sometimes people, you know, they just want to hold on to it, keep it within their own group of researchers. Sometimes people are scared to put it out because they don't want to be made fun of.
Sometimes it gets scrubbed.
Yeah, sometimes it gets scrubbed. Oddly enough, I mean, I hate to sound like a conspiracy theory, but somebody told me after we put our LBL video out, they're like, oh, you're in trouble now. You've done come on the radar for putting that thing out. And lo and behold, that very day, I lost the ability on my phone for over a week to be able to go and visit any Bigfoot or Dogman sites. I'd try to go there and it'd say Facebook has stopped working.
But at the same time, I was at the whole time I was able to go to it. So I don't know if it was a problem on his end or something.
But all of our accounts are in my name.
That's true, I reckon.
That is very strange, and not to sound conspiracy at all. I mean, personally, the reason why I asked that question, and not to distract from the verse of the show, is the fact that there is a lot of reasons behind why evidence isn't submitted, why evidence isn't put out there. And one of the biggest things is, of course, the fact of being scrubbed off. I mean, I've spoken to one person who told me that they almost got killed one time driving because there's individuals that were behind her, and it was a pretty messy situation when it came to evidence and what this person knew versus what they knew. So I'm not saying that would be the case for you guys, but I always put it out there with always be cautious with what you put out and do, because of what the consequence could be, that there is a huge agenda, that there could be a cover-up behind all of this, in a sense.
Well, and it could affect someone else, because we have a park ranger on film, I'm not going to say what park or where, telling us that he has 3 big feet in his park, but he's been told to not talk about it because it scares people in the park. His boss has told him to stop telling people. But I can't put the video out because it'll cause this man to lose his job.
And he's a very nice individual, so we'd feel extra bad.
No, I understand 100%. I know there are researchers out there and people who retell secondhand stories about the protection of the original source. I want to transition a little bit away from dogmen and other wolf-like creatures, and I want to talk a little bit briefly on some other cryptids and paranormal discussion as well. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about was when it comes to the whole belief system of Sasquatch. When it comes to Sasquatch and dogmen, now this is a little bit of a combination of both of the creatures in one. There's always been accounts that they've been able to live in harmony together. How truthful do you believe that to be the case when they're seen together?
Bigfoot and Dogman?
That is correct.
Well, actually, most everything that I've researched and found to be true so far is that most of the time the big feet don't really go into the areas where the dogmen are. I've heard people say that they do, but ironically, it seems like everywhere I've researched that there are big feet and dogmen. For whatever reason, the big feet stay more to the south and the dogmen stay more to the north. And it's always that way, always north and south, and dogmen always in the north. I even had one person who told me that they was accosted by a dogman on their own property, and the big feet that were on their property, they wouldn't even go to the part of the woods where the dogmen were.
That is very interesting. And I only say that because there have been accounts where there have been people who've mentioned that they've seen both Sasquatch and dogmen together, like very close together, and that they have either live in harmony, or that they have certain areas of turf or areas where they reside, whereas the dogmen are on one end, the Sasquatch on the other, and it's almost like a respect barrier. But it's bound to be that a Sasquatch, an elder Sasquatch, and a dogman put together would be a very terrifying mix, especially because I feel Sasquatch would have more capabilities of annihilating such creature, even though dogmen do tend to be more intimidating and aggressive, but Sasquatch too at the same time.
Well, that's possible. I mean, I guess I'm one of the few people, I guess just because I like werewolves better, that I'd probably give the edge to a werewolf, because of course it's kind of like Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, you know, because Frankenstein was bigger and stronger, but Wolfman was wilier and quicker and had more weapons at his disposal, claws and teeth. So I don't really know. I guess if it was an alpha Bigfoot, you know, against a regular dogman, maybe, because all it really had to do is get his hands on dogman to kind of crush the life out of it. But at the same time, you know, if this thing is faster and can put more cuts and injuries on a Bigfoot, I mean,
how fast could it make it bleed out or something?
Yeah.
That's also very true. Normally, when I go about a question like that, I just normally like to give feedback, or at least what your views would be, because there's always that what if factor, or there's always one thing one researcher might ask or might put out that would be a broad of curiosity in the sense. Have you guys had any anomalies or phenomenon when it comes to paranormal?
Oh, ironically, you say
I
that.
try to stay away from that, but yes, we have. My only known fear is the little creepy girl from The Exorcist, so I don't like things of a supernatural nature. But yes, I have. I've lived in a I believe, demonic possessed home years ago. And when I was very little, and I'm going to do a nightmare nugget on it somewhere down the road. When I was very little, 5, 6, 7 years old, I was at my Aunt Myrtle's house, and it was way out in the country, and I know they used to have Bigfoot activity out there because a lot of times us kids, we'd go outside to play, and there'd be something hollering off in the woods. We didn't know what it was, but the adults, they didn't really know either, but they'd say, "You kids stay close to the house today. Don't go in the woods. There's a Bob Wowster out there." They didn't know what a Bob Wowster was, but that's the only name they could come up with. But we'd stay at her house. One day we were all out, what kids are, and this is like the heart of Appalachia. We're dirt poor, dirty little kids, half dressed, out playing in the woods, making mud pies. As we're making these mud pies, my cousin Ginger walks out of the woods. She's dressed all in white, and she's trying to get us kids to come further into the woods with her. And we wouldn't do it. We were busy playing, just like, nah, go on. We're doing this. We're doing this. So she turns around and walks back in the woods. We don't think anything about it. We finish playing. We go back to the house, when it's time to go. And a car pulls up. The adults have been in town all day. And who gets out of the car? Ginger. Ginger hadn't been home all day. So what come out of the woods looking like Ginger trying to get us kids to go off in the woods with it?
That is something of interest right there. That is very spooky. When it comes to paranormal, though, I've had a few occurrences myself. I'm not really too big. I'm more of a cryptid enthusiast, but it is still very interesting to highlight in between the barriers. Real quick, just so you guys know, we're gonna ask a few more questions for you guys, and then we're gonna wrap things up. We're gonna have you guys plug in your research, your show, and whatnot, and other resources. But if you could, just please stay on the line after I conclude the pre-record broadcast.
Oh yes.
Sure.
Hey, we did get an interesting EVP when we were doing one of our nightmare nuggets. We were doing a report on a haunted apartment. And as Elijah's doing the audio, he's got a friendlier face for the camera than I do, so I try to make him be the front man for our stuff. I'll usually try to help him script and come up with concepts and do things, but I like to have him as our front man. So we're down in the woods, we're filming, and we hear this weird noise. And he's like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Don't worry about it, it's just birds." And then as he's putting this nightmare nugget together, doing the audio, there's a doggone EVP on it.
Yeah, I was going through the audio, and I kind of had to fast forward so I could listen to it real quick. And I heard something weird in the background. I was like, let me go back and listen to that. What was that? And then you just hear this strange whispering on there. It wasn't my voice. It wasn't his. But it almost sounded like he was saying, "We're not birds." He's saying, "It's just birds. We're not birds."
That is very ominous, and that's very frightening in a sense. That's creepy.
And I think we've got that up on our channel, don't we?
Yeah, it's up
the EVP's up on our channel.
And I'll put it on the website too, just
That's a very interesting EVP, though. That's something right there that would spook me out. And I think, for one, I mean, EVPs as one are very frightening because even though they are this device that you go out to use for research when it comes to paranormal, the things that you pick up on it, even if it's something so little, it really makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up.
Yeah, they're definitely odd. We want to do some research also. The only paranormal thing we'll really probably research, we're going to do a nightmare nugget on the real Exorcist house because we already shot an intro to that when we were in St. Louis. But we want to do like a few things like for lack of a better term, histories, mysteries. We want to do something nice on and cool on the Bell Witch haunting, and
we've reported on a few things that happened in Clarksville. We got 1 or 2 more videos just from extra reports from here.
Ooh, and the Beast is yet of on. I'd love to do something on that.
That'd be awesome. History's mysteries, again, for lack of a better term. There's certain places, we can't really get to. It's older accounts. We feel it's better to make more of a historical based video about it
rather than just try to call it a nightmare nugget, because we can't prove that it happened or didn't. All we can do is kind of report on the lore and the history of it, but we try to do thorough research. Even when we put these things together, we try to really research what we're doing rather than just speculate on stories somebody's told us. We really like to, if we can go there and look around, we want to. If there's documents to dig up, we want to find those.
Well, we've already mentioned we're Christians. One of a biblical principle is, one of the verses says, line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. We like to take evidence from all sources. We don't look in one area. We look at many areas, and then we bring it all together to bring our evidence.
And one thing we can promise you is we'll never lie to you, because, again, being Christians, one of the scriptures in the Bible says that all liars will have their part in the lake of fire. It don't say everybody but white liars or people that tell little lies. It says all liars. So we really strive to be truthful. And that's one thing we'll always try to covenant with you, is we'll always try to be truthful with you.
Genuine is the best, and I think what you guys display is some of the best, not just for what you put out, but also research and to speak to others that know that you're the real deal and that it's not just another bunch of researchers out there to make a quick penny off of somebody to put into a video, or to say, hey, we're here to help you and we're just going to take your report. You know what I'm saying?
And we just have a love for the subject too, If someday we ever do make a penny off of it, well, that's fine, but that's not the goal. The goal is just to do something you love, if that makes sense.
We're very passionate about the whole thing.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, no. I'm just saying in general that there are people that would take difference into the whole idea of like, oh, well, this guy, he's out to just, make a quick buck when it comes to research or something like that. But what I'm saying is that you guys, I've only spoken to you for a very little while now, but you guys display some very fantastic research, and I really praise what you guys do, and you guys are the real deal, and I want you guys to continue doing your research. I'm very intrigued by it. I find it to be very fascinating. I like the fact that you guys you're no bare bones. You go out there and you tell it how it is. You research and you find things along the way that you could get that is also explainable but also unexplainable. And I praise you guys a whole lot for that. And I appreciate your work and contribution to the field of research, especially when it comes to Dogman.
Well, I appreciate that. One thing we like is when we make these things, because we're public speakers and we preach a lot. One of the guys that trained me told me, he said, when you're doing something, try to use interesting language. It keeps people engaged. So we want to try to use language stuff as well that people like and enjoy, because nothing's worse than hearing somebody ramble on and sound like the guy on Ferris Bueller going, Bueller. You want it to be interesting. So we want to try to make things interesting.
That's the whole
Elijah, your take.
Sorry, my phone keeps getting notifications. The music will go off.
But we definitely, want to do the things that people enjoy. We try hard because someone told us, that if we made documentaries, that it would be garbage, that we'd have to work with them, or actually they said it'd be crap. That
it'd be half done.
Yeah, half done. So we really want people to like what we do, and if you've got suggestions what we can do better, we'll try it.
Absolutely. And personally, I feel that we need more documentaries like that out in the field. That's also not even more along the lines, not just a documentary, but just research. You're putting all of your data on film resource-wise, showing what you find, showing the area, showing that it's not just what you see in videos that are collabed with YouTubers who do it for money. You guys show the real deal. It's no bare bones. You guys go out there and you know what you're looking for, and that's why I really praise what you guys do. And again, you know, your generosity and what you do for the field, it's definitely worth it. I really do hope you guys continue making documentaries, because I do support them 100%.
We're certainly going to try. There's nothing worse for us than to be watching, you know, a YouTube video and somebody's just there telling you about something. Well, you know, I always thought that I would like to see where it happened. If there's any way we can go and show you this is the location, you know, here's pictures of the landscape. That way somebody has an idea of what it does look like there. They get to feel like they're interactive and have a part of it, you know, and we're not trying to keep secret anything, you know, because a lot of people are like, that's my research area, you know, I don't want anybody going there. I'm not going to tell them where it's at. If we don't tell you where it's at, it's just because we kind of don't want you to get hurt. We don't care if you go to our research area. We don't own it. You know, you may know a better way to research it.
Or possibly that it's somebody else's research area, and, you know,
yeah, we'll not give away somebody else's research area, but if we go there, you know, we have no problem sharing that location. You know,
If you manage to take the time out of your schedule and go to these areas, you kind of deserve to be able to go.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely, I agree with that 100%. Before we wrap up this show, I would love to have you guys promote and plug what you guys are doing. So can you tell us a little bit about the Cryptid Studies Institute and resource where we can find it, what you guys got cooking up, obviously, for future projects, whether it's in the Dogman realm or a brief investigation of a certain location. What do you guys got cooking on the table, and what is it?
Okay, one thing we want to plug real quick is we are actually, have you ever seen the movie Ernest Goes to Camp?
Yes, I have, actually. Good movie.
We are renting that entire camp next year. We've got it for July 1st through the 5th. There's like 48 cabins. We want to host a cryptid event there. You know, this thing's going to cost us over $2,000 just in rent alone. But we want to invite people to come down, spend the 5 days with us, go out on some night investigations with us over to Werewolf Springs, maybe LBL.
Sit around the campfire, just tell your stories.
And then, like, the last couple days, you know, just have like a Crypticon there where the public can come out. If you've got a table there, set up, sell your wares, whatever, and just have a big gathering of cryptid researchers, man. We never take time to just spend the weekend together. You know, everybody's like doing their thing. You know, you might have somebody who does like a night hunt and they charge you a couple $100 for the privilege. We don't want to do that. If you want to come out, we're trying to figure out some kind of little tier, you know, because there's a real expense for us if we feed you and stuff of that nature. It wouldn't be much of a fee, if anything. Or if you just want to come for free, you know, we'll have 48 cabins, meeting halls, and everything. We've already put down the down payment on it, but we're going to do that for Cryptid Institute, and hopefully, because we're construction workers, we're hoping to build some really big, cool, eye-catching props and stuff. Go ahead.
It should also be mentioned, though, that while there are about 48 cabins, if those happen to fill up in the time being, you can just set up a tent.
Yeah, we've got the whole camp, so you can throw as many tents out as you want.
So really, it's just however many people want to come.
I think it'd be an incredible event, you know, and of course you're welcome to come if you'd like.
I'd love to. That sounds very exciting. I would love to take a look at this campsite and do this event. It's great to see more people out there engaging in the CryptidCon aspect of things, and also good to bring researchers as one. So kudos to you guys for that. I'd love to go down there. It's very exciting.
Yeah, there's like a boat dock there and everything. We'll have a private access to it. If you've got canoes, you can put your canoes in and just paddle around.
They got an archery range.
Yeah, an archery range. You know, it's literally a summer camp. It could be a summer camp for cryptid researchers.
They got a big old giant dining hall, even a smoker.
Yeah, you know, and if we decide to feed people there, you pay a little bit for your food for the 5 days, or if you don't like what we're doing, then shoot, bring your own food. You know, we're easy, but it'd be a great time for everybody to get together and just, you know, sit around, tell you stories around a campfire. But that's what we've got cooking. We've got a couple more investigations going. Like I said, we got at least 2 more parts coming on LBL, the 2 other kill sites, and then we'd probably like to do a 4th one on like some of the local lore down there. We're looking at maybe doing the Vampire Hotel. We're looking at doing Hotel California. Maybe even some of the sites where we've had some Bigfoot activity in the park. We want to do one on Montgomery Bell where we had an encounter with 3 or 4 big feet on the front side of the park.
We've already filmed something for the Real Exorcist House. We got a couple of more, like I said, some of the paranormal reports that came from our town, Clarksville. We want to talk about the Bell Witch.
We've got a couple that are, and I hate to say this, it sounds so terrible. We're going to a con, and we're going to make our videos available on a disc. We're going to do a couple new ones that I can't put on YouTube because it'll make family members mad.
Yeah.
So these will kind of be exclusives. You know, the DVD will probably just be enough to cover the cost of making the DVD. If somebody wants to see them, if you don't want to see them, it's fine. You know, I have no problem even just burning a copy for somebody.
Yeah.
But I've got a couple I want to do, but I can't put them online because it'll make family members mad if they know it's publicly online.
And if somebody wants to see it and, you know, just has no other way, we probably wouldn't even just let you watch it. Or
yeah, so we got some things like that going on.
We got, honestly, a whole bunch of the Nightmare Nuggets film. We wrote down a whole list of stuff.
I think we've got 9 that we hadn't even got put together yet.
Shoot, I think we may have more than that because we just filmed some stuff.
Yeah, we just don't have enough time to put it all together because our work schedule. We work upwards of 50 hours a week.
We just filmed what would probably be our first one of those history mysteries. We got a few of those coming down the pipe. It's really just a whole lot of things. We're going to be at a cryptid convention sometime in.
Well, if it works out,
if it pans out,
we don't say too much about that yet because we don't know if it's going to pan out. But we. If you're interested in our stuff, we've got an Instagram account, Cryptid Studies Institute. We've got a website, cryptidstudiesinstitute.com.
We got some of our evidence, a lot of our picture evidence on there. We got some of our sounds, our whoops and roars and hollers on there.
Got recordings of the White Bluff Screamer actually roaring.
We got an information section. It's still in construction, the website. But we got like an information section telling you about some of the cryptids that we're interested in.
We're constantly scouring, trying to find old Bigfoot and werewolf articles from legitimate newspapers. We're going to try to make those available to people. We really have a passion for it, man. I mean, we just do. So Facebook, we got the group and the like page.
Obviously, we got our YouTube channel, Cryptid Studies Institute.
And we'd love it if you guys would go there and hit the subscribe button. You know, we kind of get a thrill out of having subscribers because, again, someone told us that our stuff would basically be trash, and we're glad that people enjoy it. You know, for years we didn't really try to do anything because, you know, we just felt bad about what we was doing, like nobody would like it. And now it turns out that people do enjoy our stuff.
Well, personally, guys, I mean, like I mentioned, you know, I think one of the best things about creating material like that is the passion and the love, and that's what you both manifest here, and what you do is line of practice for this. And it's not like this is a full-time career. This is an interest. This is a hobby. This is something you guys love doing. The same thing goes for me, doing what I'm doing. And I think it's important to always throw out the information. It's always important to give out the, the right resources possible, and you guys are doing that. And I have your YouTube. I have all the information. It's going to be put in the description down below at the time of this upload. So everybody, please go check out the Cryptid Studies Institute. These guys are doing a fantastic job. I really love what these guys are doing. And check out their documentaries, especially their recent one, Dark Hollow, the Beast of LBL. It's a very good one as well. You guys will really love it, and as always, guys, feel free to check out their channel. The channel is going to be awesome. It's booming, and I will be plugging your channel on future uploads of the Venomous Fringe, by the way, guys.
Man, thank you so much. We love what you're doing as well, and we love to listen. We're just big fans.
And I really like your theme song, by the way. It adds a really creepy flair to everything.
Thank you, guys. I mean, I will be honest with you real quick, if I may. The show itself, it's went through 1,000 different songs, 1,000 different things have changed, but I think I finally found the right calling for this, so I'm glad you guys like it. I'm glad you guys support the show, and like I said, you guys, I love what you guys do as well, and it'd be great to see what you guys uncover down the road when your channel blows up and has a lot of subscribers and views for all the great research you guys do.
We hope it does.
So that was Johnny and Elijah Henderson from the Cryptid Studies Institute. Very good bunch. I really like that duo of researchers, both father and son, going out and investigating the world of the unknown. They mentioned that they were at Werewolf Springs, which is a pretty interesting place in Tennessee, and this place having a history of upright wolf-like creatures roaming the area. And I really like a story like that, or at least I like the location and the history, because that's a good hotspot. And if there is a werewolf creature running around there, then I'm sure for those in Tennessee who are around the area, if you'd want to get a research crew going and perhaps maybe want to take a look at the environment, or if you know of the environment itself and know people who've seen this mysterious creature there. And we don't encourage people to go out there necessarily to want to put themselves in a line where they can endanger themselves. I always encourage people to go out there with people that they know who are really good outdoorsmen, or along the lines, if you are one yourself, you always want to put yourself in a position where you don't want to put yourself in something that would result in a compromise or harm to you. Put yourself in a position that is going to keep you in a positive route, and it's going to keep you safe. But it's a very nice location. When they were talking about majority of the times of what they were doing out in LBL and what they heard in Taylor, Mississippi, there's an interesting video floating around social media of a Taylor, Mississippi news report involving a werewolf or a creature that's been roaming the night. And it's interesting because they have one woman in the photo has a photograph in one of the interviews, and I'll see if I can pull that actually, and hopefully it's still lingering, because it's a pretty interesting photograph. But my point is that these guys have been to Taylor, Mississippi, and they are going to continue to go back. That's one of their things they want to do. And the place is very mystic, ominous, and I'd love to know more about Taylor, Mississippi as a whole. I know I don't really touch base with it, but I would love to find out if there's more to it than what we already know. And they went to LBL as mentioned, and I find that pretty interesting how the creature of the Beast of LBL, or what it was, whatever, was looking at these two guys and basically was just in a way stalking them. It was like hunting them, but at the same time not. And the theory could be, well, could this creature have been pissed that they had interrupted its feast? Absolutely. It could have, but it didn't attack them. And luckily they got out and they checked the environment and the place was nice. So it's good that those two were able to have some interesting research experiences, and to many more. But that's where it leads off to, folks. The Cryptid Studies Institute is a YouTube channel dedicated to the study of anything cryptid, and check out some of their episodes. They have the Nightmare Nuggets series, which is actually pretty cool because they've done other things besides Dogman as well. They've done a couple Sasquatch episodes as well, and I would love for you guys to take a look at them. I'll leave a link to their YouTube, I'll leave a link to their LBL show in the description down below. And that'll be the first plugin. Let's get into some of the plugins right now towards the conclusion of the show. If you are a big fan of horror stories and horror narration, check out Dogman Encounters with Jeffrey Nathamley, or Natalie. I apologize if I butcher your name all the time, Jeff, but check out his channel. Jeff's been doing this for quite some time, and he has some very interesting reports, and I'd love for you guys to take a look at his content. If you guys want to see reenacted animation of any Dogman, Bigfoot, or any other cryptid encounter, check out Dogman Narratives. This guy's pretty cool. He has a very interesting setup, and I really praise his work. He's done a terrific job with his animation, and I really like it. As well, check out Lee McNew's YouTube. You recall I had Lee on the show a while back. Lee has had a very fantastic career in research. Check out his YouTube. I'll leave a link in the description down below for everything related to that. So folks, I mean, those are our big plugins for the day. And as always, if you enjoy the content I provide out, we have an email. Feel free, if you want to get a hold of me, to send me a message at thevenomousfringe@gmail.com, whether you want to submit an encounter, whether you want to talk to me or give my opinion on something. Feel free to. If you guys also want to join a Facebook group, we have an official Venomous Fringe Facebook group. I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. As also, too, guys, if you want to support the channel, we have a PayPal link down below. This PayPal is going to research quantities only, such as a drone, EVPs, and any other equipment needed research-wise. All funds go to that. So the only income we're getting surviving on the channel is not a YouTube partnership, because we were demonetized a long time ago from the get-go, but to support the channel's needs for those type of adventures. So folks, if you can support me with that, there's a PayPal link down below. With that being said, you all have a great evening, and we'll see you next time.